Mondays with Ben Davis. Let's rip straight into the Monday means test with Corey Parker.
Cos, happy Monday morning to you. Not so happy if you're at Souths or if you're at the Titans. Who is in a worse position in your mind? Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Benny. Oh, boy, hasn't it been a turn of events once again? Rugby league world just continues to present us with talking points. And to answer that question quite simply, well, it goes without saying, South Sydney Rabbitohs. And I'll tell you why. Latrell Mitchell, Jack White and Cody Walker, Damien Cook, Tom Burgess, Keon Clark-Matangi, Cam Murray, Jai Arrow, Campbell, Graham. Just a couple of not only a couple of names like representative Origin Test stars in your lineup. And as you just touched on there, right off the top, have had one win this season, 5 out of the last, 20? Incredible to think where they are at. Now, developing story, and we had a large discussion on this a couple of weeks ago on this very show, in and around my thoughts on Jason Demetriou and what was going on at South, and I made mention that I thought that he has compromised in his own values and standards, and once you do that, as I said back then, there's only one way it's going to end, and it certainly appears that way. It's the story that broke yesterday. He's got 80 minutes. Well, I think that's garbage. I mean, 80 minutes, that's just nothing. That's just buying time. They got the bye after this week. They play the Sharks, and then they play Panthers into Melbourne. So if they win this week, what does that mean? He gets another 80 minutes? It just reeks of his days are done at South, Jason Demetriou, which is a real shame because those names that I just mentioned to you, regardless of what's going on, you've got a job to do as a player. You've got a role to execute. It's your job to go out there and facilitate a game plan. It's your job to go out there. I mean, it's like anything. You don't go to work liking everyone you want to work with, but you get the job done. And they just quite simply haven't bought into that. There's an array of areas that you probably look over the South Sydney Rabbitohs and go, oh, they've got that wrong. And, culture's probably one of them, to be honest. So, watch this space, but it reeks of JD not having a role there. Pretty much effective immediately, yeah.
Okay, so just on that then, you're saying that he's got 80 minutes to prove or we read that he's got 80 minutes to save his career. Are you saying it's garbage because it's done? Like they should, what are they waiting for, or why is it?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Like if you're a coach and you hear, and let's say it's true that the powers above have given you 80 minutes to prove yourself, well, isn't it already done? Like, what does that even mean? So let's say they go on and win this week against the Sharks. Does that just buy him another week? And then they go into the bye, and then they run into Penrith, and let's say they lose to Penrith. Does that mean he's done? Or does he get another 80 minutes? It's is it like a video game? You just get time extended if you get a win up. Seriously, let's be fair about this. I mean, the fact that they re-signed Jason in the off season, but there's a clause in his contract to say that he only gets a 9-month payout if he does get sacked. I mean, the alarm bells have been there.
Only, I think most people would be looking for.
Well, it's not. That's not normal. That's not normal when coaches are signing contracts. To be fair, clubs do it to try and protect themselves. But you go back to last year. Round 11, sitting number 1 in the competition, failed out of in contention to play finals. Never been done in the history of the game. So. As you sort of said straight off the top, there is a smell and it reeks of something going on there at South.
We'll get into what happened against the Warriors very shortly, the Trell 2 and that 3-week suspension. But if you do move Jason Demetriou on, who you've worked with him and you've seen what he's a good coach. He can coach, but right now something is wrong. It's probably the culture, is what you were alluding to. What do they do? There'll be an interim coach because you just don't pick up someone mid-season who's going to be your head coach moving forward, or do you?
Well, there'll be an interim coach, yes, that's right, and that'll be Ben Hornby. And mark these words here, Benny, and write down the date and time. Wayne Bennett will be the coach of the South Sydney Rabbitohs next year. He'll be there along with Sam Burgess the year after, and then they move on.
All right, 11
It's
minutes.
quite
11
yeah.
minutes
Well,
past 9 on the 8th of April. Wayne Bennett will be coach of South next year, Corey.
I believe so. I can't see it working any other way. I just can't see it working any other way with what's going on there at South. Wayne's got a great relationship there. Wayne left the place in great order. He knows the playing group. Is it just going to be a temporary Band-Aid for what's going on there? Maybe. There's probably a conversation to be had there. Sam Burgess signed a 2-year deal overseas. At the end of next year, that'll be up. Wayne will take control until then, and I believe Sam will come back. I just can't see it happening in any other way.
All right. Well, let's dig into that. You mentioned Band-Aid. Wayne Bennett, as we know and we've seen, has got the best out of Latrell and Cody Walker. But if he's there for, a year and then Sam Burgess comes back, but isn't the whole Latrell and the way he was treated and Cody and, yes, players were getting special treatment over others. Does Sam Burgess come in and then what? Does he patch things up with Latrell and Cody, or does he move them on? What's that look like?
Potentially he could patch things up. And I've got no doubt under the tutelage of Wayne that'd be able to happen. Now, if Wayne was going to be head coach next year, and let's say what I'm saying is correct, and Sam was to come back, I've got no doubt that Wayne would still be involved with the club and oversee as they like a coaching director type thing. So it'd still be all okay in that regard. However, there is a conversation to be had, because if you read between the lines and Sam's not there, there's a reason Sam wasn't there. He wasn't happy with the way things were getting, the standards and what was going on there at the club, and rightly so. Because as we sit here right now, we all alluded to it, and I said it, and it seems to be true. So if that is the case, I'd say that Wayne would stay on at the club and Sam may take over.
13 13 55 0467 736 736. You've heard it here from Corey. I know it's been mentioned and whispers and rumours, and that always happens when coaches come off contract, as Wayne will be at the end of this year. What happens? Is Wayne Bennett the answer at South? Do they go back to the future? Is he the Marty McFly of, he's done it before, hasn't he?
He's the Doc Holliday.
No, hang on, Doc Holliday was Tombstone. Doc Brown. Doc Brown, the mad scientist. Hang on, we've already got a mad scientist on the Gold Coast with the Titans, which we'll get into Desi very shortly. But he's done it before. He's come back to the Broncos and took them to a grand final. In his first year, Corey. So is he the answer at South? 13 13 55 0467 736 736. Maybe I misspoke before, Cozza, in saying that patch things up between big Sammy Burgess and Latrell and Cody. He probably doesn't have an issue with them. Is it the way they've been treated? Is that probably more to the?
Well, Sam doesn't have an issue as far as I'm aware. Again. I'm speculating, but from what I know from speaking with Sam and from what I know from, talking with others, doesn't have an issue with them as individuals. But when you don't want to buy into the standards that need to be had, and you don't want to adhere to those standards and those, that's the issue that he had. And he didn't walk past. He didn't walk past those values. He didn't walk past those standards, which is how you set culture. Like for me, it's a buzzword in rugby league and sport, but for me, culture is the standard you're not willing to walk past. Now, that doesn't mean if you're in sport, it could be business, it could be whatever it is. So if you understand what it takes to win, and you know what it takes to win, and you're accepting people walking past standards and values, you're setting yourself up for failure. So I don't think he's got an issue with the individuals, absolutely not. But if you don't want to buy into what we're trying to set or what we're trying to do here, then I've got an issue. So I think that's how it was. How it was from Sam.
Text coming through thick and fast, which is fantastic. Trevor, we're going to get to you on the Alltel open line in just a moment. Jason has said, "So will Wayne stab his mate JD?" No, I don't think so. I think from Corey, and tell me if you read this the same way, Wayne doesn't do anything. JD gets put in front of the firing squad, and then he just comes in and picks up the pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. If JD, and again, I'm only saying what I've seen from the evidence, I believe he has compromised his own standards. And if you've done that, well, you've got to fall on your own sword. And that's what I think is going to happen. So Wayne won't stab him. Unfortunately, JD's done it all himself.
13 13 55, the Alltel open line. It's where we find Trevor, who's out at Redcliffe. Trevor, good morning to you.
Yeah, morning, boys. Hey, real quick question. At what point do the senior players get called in for their responsibility in the way they're playing at Souths? Their role in this is to implement what they do at training. The coach isn't on the field with them. And at what point do they stand up and go, okay, part of this is our fault? Is JD on the nose? You betcha. I think there comes a time where you've been there too long and it's time to move on. But I don't think it's fair to lay the entire blame of this at JD's feet. Somewhere along the line, that's got to translate on the field. And somewhere along the line, those senior players got to stand up and take some responsibility.
Hey, Trevor, I'm with you. But, Corey, we know that it's the coach that gets the bullet, isn't it?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with what Trevor was saying there, but unfortunately, that's not the case. It's just not. There's some individuals in that group that, would be having those conversations. Some individuals in those groups would be feeling that way, but there'd be a lot that aren't. They turn up, they play the game on the weekend, they understand that, we didn't win and I still get paid and I go home. It doesn't mean what it means to others. So they can't sack all the players. So there's only one person that gets the boot, and that's the coach. And I'm sorry, that's how it works. And I don't agree with it. I agree with what Trevor's saying, because you've got to take accountability for your own performances. But in an industry where it's a win-loss industry and you're not getting the wins as a coach, well, unfortunately, that's where they draw the line.
Yeah, and we know it's a lot easier to move on a coach than it is a player when it comes to contracts. 13 13 55 0467 736 736. Plenty wanting to have their say on this. Cos, just very quickly, Latrell Mitchell, an elbow, 3 weeks. Some are saying he should have been sent. Some are saying it should have been longer. Your read on what happened with Latrell and SJ?
Just unbelievably selfish from Latrell, and just did not need to happen. The act that he come up with there was ridiculous. Like, should have been 10 in the bin. If it was anyone else, he would have got 10 in the bin. It didn't happen at the time. 14-week suspension, Benny. 14-week suspension Latrell's given his team over the last 3 years. This is your marquee player, your number one.
14 weeks over 3 years.
When you work it out over 3 years, it's about 3 a year, right? But it's the acts that he's been suspended for. Now, you go back to their grand final year, only a couple of weeks. He got 4 weeks for that act that we saw on Joey Manu, which broke his eye socket, missed the grand final. Selfish, indulged acts that we see, which invariably cost your team. It's a team sport, and everyone understands that. But what we saw the other day against Sean Johnson, like, come on, that is ridiculous. Did not need to happen at all.
No.
And people can have their opinions and jump up and down, but like, there's so many players in the game that play hard, play it fair, and don't come up with selfish little acts like that, which then filtrate through the team. Like, they're going to be without their star player when when the chips are down at the moment, they're right rock bottom for another 3 weeks. Like, it's just he's just not thinking of the team when that's happening. He's just not. You can't. And the evidence that I've seen and that I've seen over recent weeks in years to put into that, like, I'm not making these things up. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, there you go. The open line is there for you. 13 13 55 0467 736 736. Is Corey wrong? Is he piling on Latrell? Or is Latrell a koala, a protected species? Anyone else could have gone to the bin, should have gone to the bin, right?